looking at the entirety of week 4, giving out our awards for the week, defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball, looking at our rookies as well. And not everyone can be winners around here. Someone has to be the loser, and someone has to go in the doghouse. So, looking at the defensive side of the ball first, a lot of great defensive performances. Drew, you and I were texting a little bit back and forth about this one, about which way we're really going to go. I'll go ahead and I'll highlight the linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons, Mr. Troy Anderson, who unfortunately is on the injury report for this week. So we'll see if he plays in the upcoming week. But he recorded 17 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass deflection, and 1 grand pick six. I remember Troy Anderson coming in a couple of years ago. It was almost impossible to find film on Troy Anderson. If you remember from, I think, 2021, about 3 years ago, he came into the league. Almost impossible to find film on him. Came from a smaller school, but he's looking fantastic this week. Again, 17 tackles and a pick six is nothing to scoff at. But again, you bring the tackle for loss and a pass deflection as well. Honestly, a lot of great defensive performances this week. A couple of guys that really deserve a huge shout out. But Drew, for you, who is your defensive player of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I agreed with you. I went with Jaquan Brisker just because of the fact that at the position that he plays, when you have 12 to 15 tackles, when you get out there and you get a sack, when you get an interception, you're just affecting the game at so many levels. And from that, at the safety position is just super, super important.
Yeah.
Those are game changing players. Those are players where a lot of times, for instance, I can pick defensive player of the week. I could tell you it's Marlon Humphrey, right? Because he is not allowing anybody to have any space against him. Whoever he's covering on the route, they don't throw at him, right? It's Darrelle Revis like, right? But when you're impacting the game, when you're tackling, when you're getting sacks, when you're getting interceptions, and both these players did that this week. It takes it to a next level.
Yeah.
Obviously you and me, I know you had a third person on your list. I mentioned Fred Warner, who didn't play the second half of his game because he didn't really need to.
Yep.
But when the 49ers are playing the Patriots and they go down all the way down the field and they kick a field goal, and then the defense gets a stop, and then they go all the way down the field again, and they get a field goal. Now it's 6-0, and you're feeling kind of weird, right? You're just like, what's going on here? And then Fred Warner jumps up in the air like Superman, grabs the ball, falls on his ass, picks it up, runs towards the end zone, slow as shit. I don't know what happened to his speed. He had to have been tired as hell. And then he Superman, I don't even want to call it a Superman dive. It was like a Superman flop into the end zone. And then the funny thing is they had to get all the footage of him freaking out and celebrating on the sideline because he just kind of like wandered off the field. He was so tired at that point.
Oxygen, man. Need my oxygen.
And he is PFF's highest rated player so far this season on defense. So shout out to my boy, of course. But when you have Anderson, those, like Fred, those are game-changing plays.
Yeah.
Troy, he had 17 tackles. Was that the number on it? Do you have it in front?
Yep.
That is a stupid amount of tackles in a football game. An absolute stupid amount.
Absolutely.
How many did Brisker have? 12 or 13?
12.
Now, generally, you don't want your safety having 12 tackles. That's generally not a good sign. Just like you don't want your corner leading your team in tackles. But who cares? They got the dub. They took home the dub. Both these players did. And so I'm not making a passionate defense on why it's Jaquan Brisker instead of Anderson, right? I'm just shedding light on another player that went out and balled out this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then on top of that with Jaquan Brisker, too, he had another pick that was called back for a penalty on the defensive side of the ball. There was an end zone, horrible throw by Matthew Stafford. Not sure what was going on there, but another
That's called Stafford.
Another pick that was called back for that. Another guy I wanted to highlight, the other guy that you mentioned that I had on my list, Lavonte David, old-ass Lavonte David, somehow doing it every once in a while. 8 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, a pass deflection, a quarterback hit, and a forced fumble on the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So playing all over the place. Dude's still doing it. You wonder how he's still getting all these contracts. And this is why he's still getting those contracts, is because he's making plays like this.
It's so important to pad the stat sheet. I got to tell you, as a 49er fan, I am so sick and tired of talking about pressure rate and pressures when it comes to Nick Bosa. Dude, Nick Bosa leads the league in I almost got him. Almost got him. And, he finally got home this week. So he chases Jacoby Brissett down.
Yep.
It was a wild play. It was an amazing play. And Jacoby Brissett, like, himself over the line of scrimmage. So it ends up being a tackle, right? Not a sack or a tackle for loss. And Nick Bosa looks at it and he throws his hands up in there like, what I got to do to get a sack? And then a few players later, he gets a strip sack or whatever. But I'm tired of hearing about pressures. I'm tired of hearing about, Nick Bosa, he caused 17 hurries. Congratulations. Jared Goff was perfect against pressure. Pressure doesn't mean anything. I need to see the results. I need to see games like this from Anderson, from Jaquan Brisker. These are massive game-changing. When you have a sack, 12 tackles, and a pick, that is like you hit the holy grail of what you're trying to accomplish in a football game.
You affected the game at every single level that you possibly
Every
could.
level.
Yep.
Especially at the safety position, in the backfield, in the middle of the field, deep, just.
Yep.
And honestly, with the way that the NFL, although the passing yards have seen a massive decrease so far this year, but the way the NFL has exploded in offense, ban that. Only 10 players on defense, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
The way the NFL has exploded in offense in the past couple of years. Now, trust me, I like to sit down and watch a Monday Night Football game like we saw. That is purely enjoyable to me. Yep. But I also like. My team has been a defensive juggernaut for many, many years. And I like to see a player like, Anderson, like Jaquan Brisker to just, you know what, I'm going to take it over on this side of the field. And there's a few defensive linemen are cool, to watch Aiden Hutchinson have a 5-sack game. There's games where Myles Garrett just says, nah, not today. But when you see it from the safety position, when you see it from one of my favorite players to watch is Budda Baker. Because sometimes he just decides, you know what, not today. He didn't do that against the Commanders, but to see it from the safety position, to see an old school linebacker just go in there and get 17 tackles, that shit, it reminds me of Patrick Willis. It reminds me of Navarro Bowman. It reminds me of some of the greats, Ray Lewis. I just love to watch that. So shout out to those defensive performances.
It reminds you of Leighton Vander Esch on Madden. So,
nope, I hate Leighton Vander Esch. Hey, hey, what happened to that dude?
I don't know, man. He went into the woods. He decided to go be a lone wolf and go enjoy his life. Shout out LVE.
He got injured last year? Neck injury or something?
Yep, his persisting neck injuries.
Who'd that happen against? I can't remember. Were you in attendance for that game?
I try to block out, supposedly like brains will just block out all trauma. I don't remember any of the Niner games I've been to. if you guys know Jacob, this man loves to talk. That's why he has a podcast. You've never seen him sit there next to you for 3 hours and not say a damn word like I have. It's crazy. Unless you go to the Celtics Kings games, then he doesn't shut the hell up. So absolutely.
What can we do?
Looking at the other side of the ball for the offensive players of the week, I don't think that this one was as difficult to really pick up on. For me personally, two guys really stood out for me. Two. I think there's two guys that stood out.
Oh, wow.
I think there's an obvious one, a certain running back, and I think a wide receiver deserves a shout out because he's been balling out all season. So I'm not sure which one you're going to take.
What about the quarterback that went perfect?
Nah, I'm okay.
Do you know how hard it is to have 300 passing yards on 18 attempts?
Hey, dude, he had 292. He was a little short.
All right, just so we're clear, I ranked Jared Goff third. I did have him behind a certain running back for the Baltimore Ravens and a certain wide receiver from the Texans. So you take whoever you want. Okay. Yeah, you take whoever you want, and I'll take the other guy.
I'll take the less obvious ones with Nico Collins, 12 receptions, 151 yards, and a touchdown. The man's gone from who was he in the beginning of last year to Nico Collins is a pretty good one. He's a good solidified one guy. And then acquiring Stephon Diggs in the offseason and then moving from that conversation to who's the one in Houston to now Nico Collins looks like potentially a top 7 wide receiver this year, 5 wide receiver this year, leading the league in a lot of statistical categories or being top 3 in a lot of statistical categories. So Nico looks fantastic. Having the addition of Stephon Diggs has really allowed him to open up and not be doubled and really have that high production that he can actually put up. So again, 12 receptions, 151 yards, and a touchdown. Looking fantastic out there for Houston.
Yeah, I mean, so much so that Tank Dell has just become a complete afterthought, and he was fantastic last year.
Yep.
Now, I don't think there's anything changed with him. I think he's still good, and having Tank Dell develop and Nico Collins develop is going to be good for the post Stephon Diggs era. But Nico Collins, what made what CJ Stroud did last year so impressive is nobody was talking about Nico Collins or Tank Dell before the season. And we're just like, and then we're like, oh, well, he has Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Well, these guys were nobodies before the start of the season. Well, it turns out that Nico Collins might just have been a dog the whole time. Like he might have just been a dude the entire time, and he just needed a legitimate quarterback to throw him the football because it's just, I mean, the Texans, they've had a couple suspicious efforts lately, but they do have a young quarterback and a young head coach and things like that are to be expected. But oh man, that offense is that Texans offense I put up there next to the Lions offense as to two teams I don't like. I'm not, the Ravens, you're worried about them because of Zay and they have Derrick Henry obviously and Lamar, but the firepower on those two offenses is just wild.
Absolutely. And talking about the Houston Texans, their depth at the wide receiver position too as well. I mean, obviously you have your three and Diggs, Collins, and Tank Dell, but then you also have guys out there like, hey, shout out, someone give John Mechie an opportunity. And then you even have like vets on the roster as well, like Robert Woods. Like it's still pretty depthy at that position. So if someone goes down, they still have someone else to step up right behind that, which I think is something that you brought up in the last couple of weeks. So yeah.
Shout out to Robert Woods.
Shout out to Robert Woods.
He was a really good wide receiver before he hurt himself. So
yep, absolutely.
It's crazy how some of these guys never make it back.
Michael Gallup.
That's exactly who I'm going to compare to. Damn, what's the dude's name in Tampa Bay? They both got injured the same year. The other wide receiver, what's his name? Not Mike Evans, the other guy.
Chris Godwin.
Yeah, didn't him and Michael Gallup get injured the same year and they both got handed the contracts? Am I making that up?
Relatively around the same time. I'm not sure if it was the same year.
I think they had the same injuries, didn't they?
I think you're right.
This is why I'm supposed to write everything I'm going to say down and not shoot from the hip, because
entering final year of his contract around the same time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was about the same time. Yeah.
It's just crazy how some of these guys make it back and some of these guys just don't. Michael Gallup has to retire. Robert Woods, he just, he had a couple of years there with the Rams, but setting Nico Collins aside, we'll talk about the other guy who might potentially have been offensive player of the week. Mr. Derrick Henry should have been a Cowboy, but is a Raven. He was too expensive, just in case you were wondering, for all that cap space you guys have.
Plenty of teams didn't sign Derrick Henry. It's just Dallas is the only team to brag about not signing Derrick Henry. So just want to throw that out there. But go ahead.
Dallas is also the only team that's trotting out the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott at running back. A clear and obvious need going into the shout out to Tony Pollard. Finally had a good game.
Yeah. Well, we like our guys.
Yeah, we love our guys. So I had some concerns with Derrick Henry when he signed with the Ravens, and a couple of those concerns were the way he likes to receive the ball, the quarterback under center, and what they were going to do with Lamar and some of the play action stuff. The Titans utilized Derrick Henry much like any team does when they have a superstar at running back. They just kind of feed him. And there was a lot of times where Derrick Henry would have 16 carries for 37 yards in the first half. And the Titans were like, it doesn't matter. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one.
Sometime.
Eventually he broke for 80. Well, in this game, he broke for 80 on the first play. And my God, if he does not have the worst form when he runs that football, he runs straight up, shoulders back, faster than anybody on the field. And you're just like, he's slow. He looks so slow. How could just get him?
Yep.
He's his high hit, and then to go for 200 yards, obviously after that 80, 23 carries for another 120 yards is great production out of him. He continued to be, obviously when you go for 80, your stat line's going to look great, but they came out and punched the Bills in the mouth and that was it. I do think that's going to be the book, and I'm a huge Bills guy. We know about that. I'm a huge Josh Allen guy. I think that's going to be the book on the Bills this year. If you can get up on top of them, if you can get in front of them, they don't quite have the firepower. Now, like I said, they were making a comeback and they decided to do this dumbass trick play that kind of blew up their game. But Derrick Henry went out there and he was fantastic. And if he's going to be rolling like that, and then you have a change of pace like Justin Hill, who Justice Hill,
There we go.
right? And then
Names
you
are
have
good for
Lamar.
us.
Yeah, I know, huh? Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. Then you have Lamar, who averaged, I think, 10 yards a carry or something silly like that.
Right.
It's just a very two good tight ends, I think. Although Mark Andrews has been he's been
Non-existent.
on a milk carton, which for you younger generation, they used to put missing children on milk cartons. So, and then Isaiah Likely, I think he got benched for having too big of feet after week 1 because he hasn't done anything lately. But
Right.
the Ravens keep rolling. So shout out to Derrick Henry, had an amazing offensive performance, and we already mentioned Jared Goff. So I think that was
there has to be one guy who also gets a shout out, because here on the podcast, if we talk bad about someone, they play well, and if we talk good about someone, they play bad.
we're talking about.
We're talking about DeAndre Swift, 16 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, along with
DeAndre.
7 receptions and 72 yards. So shout out him. We were just talking about him playing poor, and then he explodes this week, having a good game. Again, 16 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, along with 7 receptions for 72 yards. All of that on Drew's fantasy football bench. And then the other side of the ball, talking good about someone and then not playing well as special teams. So shout out to Brandon Aubrey missing his first 50-yard kick after we were just talking about that, and then I posted a YouTube short about that and a TikTok clip about that. So that's always fun. We decided to jinx it. Apparently, we're those guys.
Also, I have one other thing to talk about, and I'm just going to put a small caveat here because I have spoken a massive ton of shit about 2 things on this podcast.
Yep.
The Cowboys.
Yep.
Because I hate the Cowboys. And Justin Fields.
The man in your studio? I don't know if he's in there anymore.
No, he ain't in here no more, because thank God they lost this week. I think he had 360 total yards and 3 touchdowns.
Was it 312 in the air or something like that?
And then like another 50 or 60 on the ground. I don't have the box score in front of me because I wasn't supposed to talk about Justin Fields, but my God, and now I'm watching what the Bears are doing with Caleb, and I'm like, is Justin Fields? I got you. So my boy, he's a big Bears fan. Don't ask me why. That's a weird ass thing to be, but he also watches the podcast, so I'm going to shout him out. He sends me this stat.
Okay.
Caleb Williams becomes the first rookie quarterback selected number 1 overall to win each of his first 2 career home starts in the common draft era. And then he texts me, he says, "We are so bad that we have to make up stats to feel like we got a good thing." So the first quarterback drafted first overall to win his first 2 home starts.
ESPN
Congratulations. Meanwhile, Justin Fields is over here balling.
Yep.
And Russell Wilson is so sad he's just dressing up in pads to make sure he's, Now we're gonna get to our maybe a little trade talk later, and so I'm gonna put a pin in the Russell Wilson stuff for now.
Put a pin in the Justin Fields one too, because we have more on that when we look ahead at week 5.
Shout out to having a long list of quarterbacks this year who have Geno turned it around last year, but Justin Fields and my boy down there in Minnesota, I'm a big sap. You wouldn't know this if you knew me in real life, especially at work, because everybody thinks I'm kind of a jerk. But I like to watch shows like The Voice. When the chairs turn around and they start crying because people are out there accomplishing their dreams. All Sam Darnold has ever wanted to do was play quarterback at a good level, and he worked so hard for it. And he was drafted to a piss poor organization like the Jets, and then he got sent to football Siberia with the Panthers. And then he takes a backup job, and he self-admittedly could have taken a starter job somewhere. He takes a backup job with the 49ers, and I'm not claiming this at all. I'm not claiming credit for it at all. Right. The 49ers wouldn't claim credit for it all. And now he's kicking everybody's ass. He kicked the 49ers' ass.
Yep. He's doing a little bit more than game managing.
It's just so I like to see players be successful. I mean,
absolutely.
Trust me, I want to see Trey Lance turn into a serviceable quarterback someday. Based off of what I'm seeing, it's not going to happen. But I want that success for everyone. I absolutely love. I mean, he's on my team, duh. But I absolutely love the Brock Purdy thing. The 7th rounder,
yeah,
which
the last pick. It's not supposed to happen.
it's funny because if you go back a year prior, he was ranked as a first round pick. He just didn't come out. And then Iowa wasn't as good. I like to see guys succeed. As much as I talk shit on this podcast, if Justin Fields makes me eat a big fat ass bowl of crow because the Steelers continue to be good, I'll just be so happy for that dude. Especially because then I can laugh at the Bears because it's like, well, you had that guy and what happened? You couldn't get anything out of him. And now he's going for 360 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Absolutely. Continue on with our awards for the week. Looking at the rookie performances, top 3 rookie performances of week 4. I'll go ahead and kick it off because this guy was my guy throughout the draft process. And
get out of here.
Where do you think I'm going?
How can you not mention Jaden Daniels first? What are we doing?
Because this guy was my guy throughout the entire draft process, and I have to bring up Braden Fisk looking fantastic with 4 tackles, a sack, a tackle for a loss, and a quarterback hit in this previous week. Again, a guy that I absolutely love through the draft process. I absolutely pushed in the draft process, and he's looked really, really good up to this point. And again, notching his first NFL sack. And looking fantastic throughout these past 4 weeks. You love to see it, at least maybe not you, but I love to see it just because Fisk was my guy. Well, just he plays for the Rams, so there's that.
Well, I just we spent so much time this offseason, more than we ever have, dissecting all this, and not even just on the podcast, just in person. And these players that I've, like looking at a player like Andrew Phillips for the Giants at corner, who's been fantastic, and thinking, okay, he's going to be the 49ers could get him in the second, and just taking mock drafts out to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round this year and knowing what the hell I was talking about with those players. It's just really exciting to see players like Fisk and following college football like I do. I know I watch more college football than you do, and then you scout it later, right? But watching Fisk be a dominant player all year and then wondering how it's going to. It's the same thing I'm watching now. Michigan has a corner, and I'm just like, this dude looks like, I don't know what the NFL is going to do with Travis Hunter, wide receiver corner. I don't know which way they're going to go with that. But this dude looks like a lockdown corner. How's it going to translate, right? Looking at Shedeur, and I'm just like, how's that going to translate? Because he's at Colorado. Colorado's not great, but his processing is top-notch. Shedeur sees everything on the field, right? Yep. He doesn't have the talent around him to succeed at the highest level, but it is what it is. So I like to see players like Fisk, and I'm glad that you went there because outside of Jaden Daniels, who could have made our offensive player of the week list, but I want to shout him out on the rookie list. I got 2 guys that we haven't mentioned yet. And so I will go ahead and mention a certain defensive lineman that came from Texas, do you know what I'm going to say?
I don't think so.
He destroyed Miami the other day. No, you're not there. We're on the rookie defensive lineman, Mr. T'Vondre Sweat. You don't remember Mr. Sweat?
You're right.
This
T'Vondre's been like one of the highest ranked PFF interior defensive linemen all year. He's been nuts.
Now, I'm a PFF guy, but there's been a couple times where I'm looking at PFF. Fred Warner's the highest ranked linebacker in the league, or defensive player in the league. Okay, that makes sense. He's killing it. Sometimes there's people up there on that list, and I'm just like, what the hell? That ain't right. And then other times I know a player's balling out, and I go look at his PFF grade, and it sucks. I'm like, I'm going to flush that. That doesn't make sense. Sweat hasn't
with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweat hasn't jumped out too much to me the first couple of weeks of the season, but this week, that man, I'm watching the game. Don't ask me why I'm watching Miami. It's a complete waste of my time, right? But they stuck him on a primetime game, so I got to watch. I got 2 screens up.
Yep.
It just felt like every play. And perfect example, going back to earlier when I was talking about Nick Bosa. Well, he almost got the sack. Oh, he got the pressure. He almost got the sack. Now, Sweat was just like, you know what? I'm going to take over this game. I'm going to dominate it. And he was one of those players where when we were talking pre-draft and all that stuff, I had him ranked a lot higher than a lot of mock drafts. I think I mocked him at one point in the first round.
We ended up mocking him in the 3rd because of how far he was dropping. We were both on the same page about Sweat, but we ended up having to mock him in the 3rd because of what we were hearing.
Yeah, and it just
didn't feel right.
It's good to see him show out. Shout out to Fisk for showing out. I like that.
Absolutely.
Who else you got?
I also have a Mr. Brian Thomas Jr. 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Another one of those guys who we went extensive processing through pre-draft process. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with these guys who are very, very fast, but a guy who's that big and just barely slower, and slower is very, subjective word here, slower than Xavier Worthy, who got all the hype, but what was he, 40 pounds heavier than Xavier Worthy and like 2/10 of a second slower. So that's the type of guy that Brian Thomas is. And you get kind of like worried about what type of guy are you getting, a Jalen Hyatt type of guy who's not really going to do anything in the league, especially for the Giants, or are you going to show out and do what you're doing this year? Again, 6 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Jacksonville might be 0-4, but at least they have some sort of wide receiver in the making over there. Who's your next one?
I had to go a little homerish, and I apologize.
Okay.
But Dominic Pooney is the 14th highest ranked guard PFF in the league. And this is where the eye test supports the PFF grade.
Yep.
He's been absolutely fantastic as a rookie guard. And the reason why I'm picking him is because you and me battled all offseason on the Rams and them spending all this money on these guards. And now their offensive line is absolute shambles. And the 49ers just picked this dude up in round 3, slotted him in at right guard, and now he's one of the best guards in the league so far. And the 49ers offensive line is not great. Normally, the rising tide raises all boats, right? So when the offensive line is really good, it's really easy to look really good. 49ers offensive line is not good. Matter of fact, coming into this week, they had the worst center in the league rated. And the guy right next to him is one of the best in the league rated. So I just shout out to him. I think that I'm going to keep it a trend mentioning an offensive lineman every week. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of injuries, so it's taken a little bit out of my thing here, but I snuck in. Just speaking of which, I mean, you guys have an offensive rookie on the offensive line that's been absolutely fantastic this year also. And I'm not talking
position
about your first round pick, by the way.
And believe me, we will talk about that first round pick later when we do our rookie check-in for our first month. Sweet. So we have 2 there, and then we're both kind of just mentioning Jaden Daniels as well, right? I mean, you have to 26 of 30, 233, a touchdown, 8 carries and 47 yards, and absolutely decimating the Arizona Cardinals. Kind of feels like you have to mention Jaden Daniels, who's not only looking like one of the best rookies if not the best rookie in the draft, but also looking like a top 10 quarterback already, very comfortably.
Going back to Brian Thomas, I have him in that other segment we're doing for rookies later, so I probably won't talk about him much. But the majority of his catches this week, do you know who they came against?
Who?
Mr. Kamari Lassiter, which is which is funny because
we shouted him out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, bro. I'm glad that some of our previous takes aren't recorded like this one is, because stuff that we talk about this year is going to come up in year 3 and year 4. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any of my massive Christian Watson love on tape, and he's just he's injured now. But shout out to Brian Thomas Jr.
Absolutely. So there we go. There's our rookie performances of week 4. But again, not everyone can be winners. Someone has to be a loser around here, and that has to go into the doghouse. Drew, who is your there we go. Who is going in your doghouse for week 4? Because I have a pretty unique one, a guy who's not gonna ever probably be in the doghouse past this point. But I definitely want to put him in this week because you've got to pick up the opportunity when it presents itself. So you go ahead and start it out, and then I'll finish it for you.
Are you putting your kicker in the doghouse?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, good.
No.
I watched back this segment last week just to see how it went, and it's really funny because the AI kicks out your bark.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, so you go, oh, and I'm like, whoa, that's we got to get the sound back in there because that looks awful. Okay, my doghouse. So we did a segment. I know all of you guys that are watching this have watched every minute of our podcast, but we did a segment leading up to the season because we were bored as hell, where we did like 20 random ass things that might happen this year. And one of my crazy predictions was that the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis were going to be really fun to watch. Now, as long as you're not a Titans fan, everything that Will Levis has done on the football field this season has been hysterical to watch.
Yep.
Now, it's all been absolutely terrible. So for that, Will Levis is going in my doghouse. Now, he has company. I haven't let Brandon Ayuk out yet. Lamar got out. Lamar's cool. He's doing his thing. Brandon Ayuk's ass is still in there because, he had one catch for 30 yards that Kyle Shanahan got him wide ass open on. And then, Brock Purdy, who eventually we're going to talk about, by the way, because he's putting all the doubters got to shut the hell up. The 49ers are like last in yak this year, and Brock Purdy's second in passing yards. Last in yak, second in passing yards. He tosses up this beautiful ball to Juwan Jennings, right? Get it, go. He passes this beautiful go route to Deebo Samuel. Get it, go. He passes into triple coverage to George Kittle. George Kittle goes and gets it done. He finally puts one up for Brandon Ayuk, and guess what happens? It gets picked off. God, Brandon, your ass sucks. I'm still out on you. You're still in the doghouse, but now you got company with Will Levis. Maybe we should ship you off to Tennessee. Or maybe we should ship you to the Raiders for Devontae, because Devontae wants out. So
yeah, I saw that. I saw an article about that one. That was pretty interesting to look at. For me personally, again, my doghouse of the week is a guy that I got to take the opportunity because he's a guy that's not going to end up in the doghouse. I don't know if he's ever ended up in the doghouse, but I have to mention a quarterback that is top 3 quarterback of all time at this point. Mr. Patrick Mahomes deserves to be in the doghouse for throwing a pick, and then on said pick goes for
Rashee Rice.
You tear your leading wide receiver's ACL at that point. How do you throw a pick, throw your body into your number 1 wide receiver who's been absolutely balling, and tear his ACL? You deserve to go in the doghouse for that alone. Throwing a pick and then tearing the ACL on a 5-second window of opportunity. So Patrick Mahomes, you go in the doghouse for that one.
He did it on purpose.
You think he did it on purpose?
Yeah, because he got after the news hasn't come out yet, but once it does, Patrick Mahomes is going to walk in. He's going to grab Andy Reid, and they're going to go in and they're going to walk into the GM's office, and they're going to say, "Yo, there's a certain team out there, and their season is completely shot to shit now. They have playoff aspirations. They're not going anywhere with the Skylar something or Snoop Dogg quarterback. So call the Dolphins and get my boy Tyreek Hill back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And let's reunite this and get Tyreek Hill back to the Chiefs so the 49ers can kick that ass in the Super Bowl." That's what I'm super hoping for. But real talk, expect the Chiefs to be super aggressive. This is Hollywood Brown on the IR now.
Yep.
This is Rashee Rice on the IR, who was balling out. And Xavier Worthy is a super good weapon, but he is a rookie, and we have seen the press issues. So with him being the primary focus on the offensive side of the ball,
a corpse.
Yeah, bro. Taylor Swift sucked the life out of him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Every time I text you one of my really good puns, you say save it for the podcast. So
that's true. I do. That's on me. I should have expected Here's something.
And we're obviously going to talk about trades later, so I won't say anything else about that. But Patrick Mahomes in the doghouse, that's wild.
Yeah. Hey, you got to take the opportunity when it pops up.
Obviously, with him in the doghouse, they lost that game, right?
No, they didn't. I don't know how they end up keep winning, but I guess
all
we'll
I
talk
do
about
is
it.
win.
I guess we'll talk about it a little bit more